Welcome to the RSN Sports Statewide Tailgate Show, produced by SETV for RSN Sports Network and Vibe National. It's game time across the mountain, so join us for all the in-depth analysts, predictions, fan interaction, and more. The RSN Sports Tailgate Show is brought to you by Thomas Health System, Little General Stores, the Greenbrier Resort, Palmar Convenience Stores, Weblaw Center, Summit Orthopedics, Sports Clips of WV. From the heights of the Alleghenies to the banks of the Ohio, from Oakland to Bluefield, it's one state, one sports network. It's RSN Sports.
Welcome to the RSN Sports Tailgate Show, brought to you by Dutch Miller. And we are in the showroom of Dutch Miller Kia in South Charleston for tonight's program, and we are very happy to be inside. We love being outside normally in high school football around the state, some of the great venues. But the weather is pretty miserable across the state of West Virginia tonight. Frank Gardenia, the football queen, Lisa Odie with you. We're still waiting on the All-Pro, Carl Lee.
I can already say there's one guy still outside.
Traffic is tough. Dana Farrell, though, is with us. And Dana, around the state of West Virginia tonight, whether you're in the southern part of the state, the central part, or the northern part, the weather, the wind, the rain, the cold's kind of playing havoc with football.
It is crazy. This is the first real weekend that we've had a challenge with weather. Yes, we've had, a couple weeks ago, we had the rain that kind of came up the coast with the hurricane and things, but it was kind of a slow, warm drizzle. This here has some wind behind it. The temperatures have dropped down in the 50-degree mark even as we come in here. So, by game time it should be in the 40s and with the wind chills for certain. So it's going to be a challenge, I think, for teams. And it may, I think you start getting to a situation, is it going to change some outcomes of some games?
And Queen, it's a challenge for you and I to get around. And the All-Pro still isn't here.
Wow.
And we've got chicken from Chick-fil-A. It's going to be gone by the time he gets here.
That may be totally done by the time Carl rolls through
our
the
good
door.
friends out at Southridge
Right.
Chick-fil-A, they're so great to provide for us, and they sent out a lot of things here. But we've been here.
It's fading fast.
It's
right.
fading.
It's fading fast.
As Chick-fil-A usually does, wherever it's at.
Right. True story. Any tailgate you go to.
Absolutely.
Dana, you've coached for many years also. When you encounter something like this, where travel either prohibits you from getting there or makes you late getting there, you have to kind of go to a plan B or a plan C. It's challenging for a coach too, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Nobody likes to be late, especially when you're trying to prepare and you want to be in the best mental state you're going to be in. And I think even as a fan, you could relate. You're traveling again. I'm going to miss the kickoff, or I'm going to miss the. You just don't want to be in that situation. But certainly as a coach, and then you start worrying about. Where are my players? And here in Kanawha County, they didn't provide, and they still do not provide buses for any teams outside of football in particular. So we were coaching, another sport, and I was coaching volleyball at the time, and I can recall rush hour trying to get to Parkersburg, and you're concerned the whole time, all my players going to show up on time and safely. So I think you start to think about those kinds of things, put some extra burden on you.
It not only affects the fact that, trying to transport the players from one location to another to get to the game and get it started, it's probably going to affect fan, participation and whether the fans even show up.
Yeah, how do you get there?
Right. Well, how do you get there? And you put that with the fact that the weather is horrid. And it's been nice, and this is a big adjustment for everybody as far as, body temperature and everything.
So, just trying to get – I tell you what, you might – and I see the All-Pro coming in here, but I thought about one thing. You might be in luck if you get a situation. I'll never forget one year. It might have been by the time Carl was playing down at Marshall, but they had some good offensive teams, and they would score so quick out of the game. I had a good friend. He was running late like this to the game, and he was playing down there, and I think he probably stayed too long on the tailgate lot. And he comes down there into the stadium. They're sitting down with us there, and Marshall had already scored the first touchdown, and they were kicking off. And he goes, "Oh, I got here in time for the kickoff." We're like, no, look at the scoreboard. They've already scored one. So.
Well, we are physically in Charleston, and Charleston is a mess because the highways are shut down, and there are a lot of big games going east to west tonight. For example, in Single A, Fayetteville and Buffalo playing in Eleanor, in Putnam County. Capital and AAA playing at Spring Valley, and Woodrow Wilson trying to get to Hurricane.
Their buses just went by. We're here at the Dutch Miller Dodge Jeep showroom here in South Charleston. And we just seen 3 buses from Raleigh County go by in front of the dealership here at a crawl, trying to snake their way over to Hurricane. So everybody's trying to do what they can to get there and start a game. But there's going to be some late starts for certain.
and there'll be some interesting weather conditions. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Back with more after this.
Jeep in South Charleston, because of all that crazy snow, we're a little overstocked with brand new Jeeps, so we're in a little bit of a pickle. So what we're going to do to help that is create what's called a nickel pickle sale, which means that you can get a brand new Jeep at Dutch Miller South Charleston with a down payment as low as a nickel. What do you think about that, Dill?
I look like a jalapeno. This is ridiculous.
You look great to me. What's wrong?
Why am I in this?
Well, it's a nickel pickle sale. We had to have a pickle.
Why couldn't I have dressed up like a nickel?
I didn't think of that.
For more than 200 years, guests have been coming to the Greenbrier to take the cool mountain breezes and experience authentic Southern hospitality. Today, that passion has been reinvented. The Greenbrier is the quintessential luxurious vacation. Book your stay today, and we'll create experiences that last a lifetime. Call 877-735-5068 or visit greenbrier.com.
Hi, I'm the host of a new sports show here in Charleston called The Brandon Lowe Show. I talk WVU, Marshall, high school sports, and even national stories. Things don't always go as planned. But Nick always knows how to tackle the problems.
Listen to The Brandon Lowe Show, weekdays at 5 on AM 950 and 95 thesportsfox.com.
It wasn't all of us.
One
though.
when I got here.
Okay.
Go.
Welcome back to the Dutch Miller RSN Sports Tailgate Show, and we are at Dutch Miller Kia here in South Charleston. Actually, the All-Pro Crawley has joined us, Frank Gardenia, Lisa Odie, Dana Farrell. Tough weather night across the state of West Virginia and around this Pacific region where we are here in Charleston. Very tough. Dana, we often talk about a lot of the fans and the enthusiasm at games and some crowd shots and so forth. Tonight may be a little bit tougher to get to games for fans, but if they do get there, we know we'll have some enthusiastic fans.
The fans that make it out tonight, I don't care where they're at, they're going to be committed. And tomorrow at West Virginia and at Marshall, there's going to be some true fans. You
Right.
find out who's serious and who's not. But we already had this morning, before we had this, besides the weather, besides the traffic, there's a national outage. I think Google has been down, and it affected our Twitter site, RSN Sports 1. So our fans were able to communicate with us some this morning, but by noon or so, it had crashed. So, but before then, at least they were saying, "Hey, a little rain's not going to stop." Of course, this isn't a little rain, but right, we're going to be there because you've got some big contests tonight, and we'll talk about those moving forward. But there's some big contests in parts of the state. So, I think if your team's undefeated or it's facing an undefeated team, you want to be there. And I remember those days. I can remember. I told Frank before we went on air about being down at Marshall once when they were playing for the MAC championship against Ohio University, and it was an ice storm. And I mean, we were there under the tarp. It didn't matter. It's not going to shut you down.
This is the kind of weather, though, that can even a ball game up. You can take a team that's a really good team that's expected to win. All of a sudden, a couple fumbles, a couple interceptions, and now in the era of everybody throwing the football, this changes the dynamics all of a sudden for teams that do that. And
What's the worst? The wind? Is that the worst?
Yes, the wind becomes – rain is tough, okay? It's tough because the ball obviously is slippery, but then the wind adds to that, and now it's just chaos. And so you could run the best route. The ball could leave the quarterback's hands with the best intent, and that ball ends up anywhere. And so this is a game that, as a defensive player – you look forward to because it evens you up a lot when it comes to receivers, covering the receivers, and the quarterback being able to throw the ball well.
Especially in high school.
For sure.
And I don't think
Passing game's
anywhere.
already a
We're going to talk
thing
about
you
these
should be good
games,
at.
but I don't think anywhere any more evident than right here in our backyard. Huntington High is coming here, 5-2 over here at South Charleston, 4-3. It's a game. It would be a big
win for South Charleston that could pull that off. But I think this weather does help South Charleston. They're on a natural grass field. There's going to be wet. It's going to be muddy. There's going to be wind. I think it plays. Huntington. If you had to look at quarterback play, they definitely have a definite advantage there, but not with the weather. I think it definitely helps nullify things.
For example, too, with the college games, TCU at West Virginia, Carl, is it? I think to me it seems like it would be an advantage to the home team because when you travel, and you travel distance as TCU is traveling, and then you come from warmer weather Texas into West Virginia and you get some inclement weather, it seems like it's colder when you're on the road than it is if you're home. Is that crazy?
Yeah, 50 degrees, 40 degrees, coming from 80 degrees or even 75 degrees is a whole lot different when you've got to play in it. And that's always been, when you go to the NFL and you look at Minnesota, you look at Chicago, you look at Green Bay, those are always used to be the advantage, was just being out in the cold. You look forward to when it starts snowing, when the wind starts blowing, when the wind chill starts to get down around 0 and below. Teams from Florida, teams from Texas, teams from California, that is not the place they want to come and be outdoors. You understand how to manage those elements. They do not. And so this could be that case for WVU.
You hear that in the draft a lot. You'll hear when the Browns or the Steelers take a quarterback, people will say, well, yeah, he'd be good in San Diego, but he's not the type of quarterback Cleveland or Pittsburgh needs. What do they mean when they say that? A stronger arm in bad weather?
Actually handling the weather. And because that player that's coming out of San Diego, that's going into Chicago, going into Cleveland, has never been in, or likely never been in a situation to where you got to practice in it, you got to play in it, and that adjustment can really be very difficult on top of all of the other elements and challenges that come with being just a rookie quarterback as a whole. Learning the playbook, learning the audibles, learning the defenses, all of those kind of things, and now be cold. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. That changes the dynamics because cold weather can change your ability to think. You just, all of a sudden, you just lose it. You're just so worried about being cold and how can I get warm that you forget you just can't play as well.
Well, you made me think last weekend after we finished up at Bridgeport, and I asked you then about, as an NFL player, when you're in that cold, I said, did the adrenaline kick in and help you get warm? And you said it was struggling. You said, no, it didn't.
No, you're cold, and I never really understood how Bud Grant and those guys did it, but after being part of that history and legacy, it's like Bud used to tell you, okay, look, you can't wear anything beyond what the team issues you. Gloves, long sleeve, whatever it is, has got to be team issued. Accept the reality that it's cold, and you're going to be out there for however long the game's going to go. So if you're going to go out there, just accept being cold and play. Right. Don't worry about it.
I don't accept that very well.
Well, I know our Point Pleasant game.
I don't accept that.
Well, I seen you two struggle. I saw them struggle last year in Point Pleasant when it was a tad cold, and they were like, the Queen was bundled up by the time the game was over.
Let me just
say
this.
Have to accept the reality.
I had like a new layer.
At that game at Point Pleasant last year, a playoff game with Huntington, it was freezing.
It was cold.
The Queen and I, we walked to the car together. We looked like two 98-year-old men, all huddled over and humped over. We looked like we were close. We were 100 years old walking to the car.
Well, and for me, I just like, okay, the show's going to be an hour. The temperature's going to be this. So I got to sit in it. And so it's like, don't even think about it.
So I know how you talk about the adjustment from warm weather to cold. What about vice versa? Is it
I can handle that.
Well, I mean, for like a player.
Frank has the system. We saw that down at
Frank would like that order. Frank would like that order.
Would you hush for a minute?
but it is a little bit challenging late in the season. You're practicing in the cold, and of course in Minnesota we still try to practice outdoors all the time, and then the next thing you know you're going down to Tampa and it's 85 degrees. Right. So yeah, you're a little short of breath and all of that.
But you adjust quickly.
Playoffs though, what's interesting is playoffs, teams usually will go to, so if you're going to play out west, you may go as far as Arizona to go practice and prepare for the playoffs. When we played San Francisco in '87, we went to Arizona to practice. We went to North Carolina to get prepared for other teams. Just because you cannot, you don't want to come out of 20 below and then go to 80 degrees.
Shock,
and it's just too hard to do.
Right. Big change.
Yeah. So.
By the way, most of us know that the Queen is a big-time Packers fan.
I am.
And the cold weather team,
But-
the Vikings, a cold weather team. I think the Vikes have gone a little soft as they've moved inside over the years.
What's going on?
And the
I
pack,
really do.
the pack is still outside at Lambeau
That's
Field
right.
and
We're
have
tough.
stayed outside.
Well, where did we play the last
Real
game?
football.
What was the first game at? The Packers and the Vikings. Was it at home?
I think
Was it Vikings? Was it?
I thought it was at
That
home.
was a
Yeah.
that was
So
a mirage.
we politely brought them into
It
indoors.
was home for you guys,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But you guys have to come to Lambeau. Like,
Yeah, but
later
we
when it's
figured we'd
colder.
invite you into the new stadium and beat you up, and then we'll come through the snow and cold and do what we got to do there.
Who do you play this week?
I don't even know.
Oh, okay. I'm just.
I don't even know. I'm just thinking.
I'm hoping that defeat is.
No, we
somewhere
play
around
Philly.
the corner.
We play Philly.
Wow.
We play Philly. Matter of fact, I should have known that right off because I'm going to Philly tomorrow for an event. I'm going to Philly tomorrow for an event, so I should have known that. And so Philly's, I think we're gonna beat Philly
see.
too.
We'll see.
Who do you all play? Because you're not
We
doing
played
too
last
well.
night.
What did y'all
They
win?
got a nice win against the
Yeah.
Bears.
The Bears? Oh, okay, all right. I'm just saying.
Thank goodness the Cubs made up for it by beating the Dodgers in Chicago last night. So.
Well, here's the other thing about being late and playing. And sometimes when you're late and you show up for an event as a team, everybody understands. They understand. But then when you get there, they're like, okay, you got 15 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and go. Well, that's not enough time for teams to stretch and get warmed up. I mean, the sympathy stops once you really get there.
Right. That's what I said tonight, and we've seen these teams are going to be late, games are going to be late, fans are going to be fussing. It's just going to be tough.
And they're going to try to keep it on time. They're going to try to keep it on time. So that's going to shorten, like you said, the warm-ups and do all those kinds of things.
Shorten halftime.
Halftime and all that. And when you do that, that's a challenge. That's a challenge for players.
I've always said I wouldn't want to be in the band. They're getting the band. You got to wear issued uniform. That's just what it is.
Right.
And then you got to go out and perform in that and stomp in the mud and everything goes with it. So, and I learned last year up at Point Pleasant, holding on to a metal.
That's right.
Your fingers are numb. I can only imagine holding
You
on
need
to
gloves.
a trumpet or something like that. It would just radiate the cold even worse.
Right.
Well, it's it also may point out because the Queen was a cheerleader. Now cheerleaders could wear sweaters and stay nice and warm. Majorettes, now they're pretty tough.
Do the cheerleaders get cold?
Goodness. Wow.
Isn't it amazing how Frank can tear down? He can tear anything down.
I can use anything. I can start a fight with anything.
Oh wow.
Well, they're also.
This is pick on the Queen night, I believe.
Well, when you talk about the band too, Dana, one of the things that is happening in college football now, a lot of places is stadiums that don't have turf, and a lot of stadiums prefer to be grass. They will not let the band perform at halftime because of tearing up the field more from the first half to the
don't
second.
want to perform at halftime. They probably we'll just stay in the stands and play. But I will say something about his dig over here with the Queen. What he doesn't realize, he's not just picking a fight with her, but the fans. We have a lot of cheerleaders that follow this.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he won't be favorable. Yeah.
Back me up, ladies out there.
All right.
Well, all right, we'll take a break. Back with more here on the RSN Dutch Miller pregame show after this.
Day, around the clock, 24/7. Hundreds of Thomas Health System doctors, nurses, and staff are focused on making quality care and wellness our utmost priority for you and your family. Each one of us is personally committed to your optimal health and well-being. Thomas Memorial Hospital and St. Francis Hospital. Your trusted, personal choice for a lifetime of good health.
For everything sports, the action is at Collectibles, etc. Sports collectibles and more are here. Over 100,000 items in a great location at the Nitro Marketplace. We are your WVU merchandise and apparel connection for men, women, and of course, kids. Mini helmets, full-size helmets, t-shirts, hats, blankets, and hoodies with your favorite sports team logo. We have it all for the sports enthusiast and for the whole family, too. Take the Cross Lanes exit and drive up to the Nitro Marketplace. Also find us online and on Facebook. There's never an off-season at Collectibles, etc.
Welcome back, Dutch Miller Kia RSN Sports Tailgate Show. We're at Dutch Miller in South Charleston, actually coming your way on a very rainy night across the state of West Virginia. Frank Gardenia, the football queen Lisa Odie, and the All-Pro Carl Lee. When you look around the state this weekend, we have in Morgantown, West Virginia, hosting TCU. It's as big a game as the Mountaineers have probably hosted in the last 5 or 6 years, as they are nationally ranked, 5-0. They have TCU, a team that has had great success over the years in Big 12 play since both joined the league. This TCU team this year, not quite as good, but I think, Carl, this is still the best test West Virginia has had this year.
And it's one I think that they have to pass.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for them to pass that because, I think for a lot of the fans who have been on the Dana Holgorsen, I don't want to say bandwagon, but like, hey, something's going on, something's got to change. I think they really need to see WVU play extremely well, win this game, and I'd even say win it pretty good. And with the conversation now talking about the Big 12 not being that strong, WVU being 5-0, I think it's important for them to go out and really play well. I think this could be a turning point for them confidence-wise, and maybe give Dana some room to be comfortable for a little bit.
Right.
Queen, we're not hearing as much criticism, obviously, for obvious reasons, of Dana as we have in the past. Do you sense that turning a little?
Well, sure. I mean, like I said before, I think we've had this discussion on other shows. The boo birds don't come out, so to speak, until they start to lose. And that opportunity has not happened this season. And, the games have been close games. There have been complaints that there's not enough points scored, but they keep winning. They're undefeated. Right now, they're number 12 in the AP rankings, and I can almost promise you, almost guarantee that if they can defeat TCU at home this weekend, they're going to be one of the quietest teams in the top 10 coming in October.
Yeah, they're going to move up.
They're under
a
the
couple
radar.
More sports.
Yeah. And that's the way they like it, I believe.
If I'm not mistaken, though, I think one of the concerns that I think is still sitting out there, and we've seen this in a coach in the past, a recent coach in the past, winning isn't always enough. Fans want to win the way that they think they should win. They should win big. They want to win big. They want exciting, and that's what Dana Holgorsen was brought there to do. What his claim to fame was that he was the guy, creates this offense that's explosive, puts up points. Can he make his way through the Big 12, win close games, run the ball, not put up these big yards and all of that? Can he do that and the naysayers still support him?
I think so. I mean, I think if they can win out and win the Big 12, I don't care if they beat every team from here on out by 1 point. They're still winning and they're still undefeated. And the fans are going to support that, and they're going to be excited. And, you can't ask for more from this team in Morgantown than to keep winning. Regardless of how they're winning.
And I'm not knocking it. I'm
not
knocking it. I'm making the case.
I feel like if they keep winning, you're
Bill
not going to
Stewart,
hear the negativity.
I'll go back to Bill Stewart and say, it wasn't so much about him not winning. I mean, his win-loss records were pretty good. He had done pretty good, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't exciting enough.
Now,
so do we have any similarities here?
The first loss, if they face a loss in the next few weeks, that's when you'll start to hear it again. As long as they keep winning, regardless of the point spread or by how many points they win, people will be happy. They'll be satisfied with that. Morgantown WVU fans will be happy with that. It's the Big 12. It will be the first time since they've joined the Big 12 that, if they could win it, that would be an accomplishment for Dana. So the first defeat, I'll entertain your thoughts.
All right.
If you remember, one of the reasons Oliver Luck said he went back to when Oliver was the athletic director, he said he made a change with Bill Stewart was that Rutgers football game, the last home game of the year in early December, the first weekend of December, and there were 48. It was a cold day. It was not a very pleasant day at all. And it was also not that meaningful a game. Rutgers was not that strong. It wasn't expected a very, very good game. They'd never beaten West Virginia in those Big East days. And the attendance was, I think, 48,000 or 45,000. And that concerned Oliver. So he said. That was the reason he said that he was concerned and felt like maybe they need to make a change. He was concerned about some slipping in attendance. I never, to be honest with you, never quite bought that, because the next few years with some bad weather games, they had some low attendance figures as well. I mean, I thought the Rutgers game had bad attendance because it was not an attractive opponent and the weather was bad. It wasn't because people were upset with Bill Stewart, but there's all kinds of reasons why people make changes, and if they want to make a change, they can find.
Oh, they can definitely find a reason to make that change. I think fans today have a desire. Winning is one thing, and yes, everybody wants to win a championship, win their conference, but I think people still like exciting football. They want to see the ball in the air. They don't really want you to run the ball, throw a pass, run the ball, 14-7. They don't want that game. Those days have pretty much gone to me. And my concern is I think there's the diehard WVU fans that are out there that are saying, okay, well, the Big 12's down, even though we're winning. We're not winning. It's not exciting. It's not the way we thought it was going to be. It wasn't this air raid, this air attack. Now, they do have a deep threat.
I don't know many, but they may be out there.
I don't know. We'll see. And again, I'm not hoping for any of that. I just think that there still is a concern that a loss, and I'm not sure who it really has to be, even a team that's better than them, I think there's going to be this kickback at some point about not being explosive enough on offense. That's the thing.
Those points will be brought up the first defeat, if a defeat occurs. I mean, I think you're right, and I think you're on track, but that's when people get upset and start thinking the negative thoughts. Right now, they're happy. I mean, they're undefeated. They're in the top 15 in the country. I mean, they can't ask for more at this point. I see what you're saying as far as wanting more points on the board and making it more exciting, but as long as they're winning, I think the fans are happy at this point.
I hope you're right.
Coaching is one of those rare professions where people can always come up with something negative to criticize you for. You agree?
Oh, yeah. We've heard conversations about getting too excited on the sideline as a coach, not excited enough as a coach.
Wearing black.
Yeah. Changing the colors and the style of the uniforms. I mean, it can be the smallest thing to criticize them on because it is so big. There's so many options that you can choose from for a head coach that people will be able to find. That's never going to be the problem.
Right.
Well, the other thing I hear complaints about, not just of Dana Holgerson necessarily, but of all coaches, people will say, boy, they yell too much, they scream too much on the sidelines, and they look awful. Well, the camera, now there's more television, there's more cameras. You can't get away with anything that the camera doesn't pick up now, and they show it over and over again. The more demonstrative you are, that works against you. If you're not demonstrative enough, then they say you don't care enough. I mean, it's amazing. There's always something to critique.
Well, and on the pro sideline, you don't see as many cameras staying on the pro sideline because the interaction between coaches and players. As a pro, as a grown man, and another grown man yelling at you because you did something wrong, there can be some conversation that's not your typical high school, college coach, or even maybe college player coach conversation. In the pros, that dialogue is a little bit different. And I don't think the NFL wants to show how that takes place. Because it can be face to face. I mean, it can be that crazy when you have those kind of situations. So I think that the staying away from the sidelines to keep from seeing that kind of stuff, I think is important.
Well, we've seen Buddy Ryan punched Kelvin Gilbride, when they were assistant coaches, I think, in Houston together. We know Buddy Ryan and Ditka didn't get along with the world champion Bears in '85. I mean, egos being what they are, there are certain things you just don't want to see.
No.
You don't want shown, but yet it makes for interesting television when the camera does catch it. As a player, is it awkward to see your coaches square off like that?
Yes, because it is a rarity. What you typically get is, if I'm a coach and you're a coach, I'm going to walk by you and just say something super smart to you or angry and keep walking so that we're not in confrontation, right? The question is how do you take it? If you stop and come back, now I've got to stop. But if you keep going and say whatever you need to say and keep going, then we've gotten out of that moment until later. You know, we'll talk about it later.
This can wait.
I think even for college kids, it's even more awkward.
Yes.
To see their head coach and maybe their position coach get into a verbal argument.
It is in the game. It is odd in the meeting rooms and things like that. Mm-hmm. Coaches are really protective of their players. And so if you are the D coordinator and you come at me as a DB coach and Pete Carroll's my DB coach, he may feel like he needs to protect me. He may say something and say, well, you know, hey, Frank, it's not that big of a deal. He's okay. I'll take care of it. You know, when I coached at West Virginia State, I didn't want anybody talking to the defensive backs. I didn't want anybody. Don't critique them. Don't judge them. Don't say you got to do this. Just let me take care of that. So coaches are very sensitive about what is said to their players based on, you know, you've heard the thing about don't say anything to the quarterback. He loses his confidence. Don't say anything to the kicker. So the special teams coach is pretty protective. He doesn't want anybody destroying the kicker's confidence or the quarterback's confidence. So all of those kind of things are really protected.
Queen, you teach. You don't want somebody coming in your classroom probably and chewing you out in front of your classroom, I wouldn't think.
Oh, no. No, of course, that's never an issue with me. But I mean,
but it is the same thing.
But I see what you're saying, because even like with my kids that I have, you know, in my classes that I take on a day-to-day basis, if another teacher, I mean, we all have each other's backs, but you know, pretty much they're my kids, and you need to talk to me, and I'll take care of it.
Yes, exactly, and that is the structure of how that works.
Yeah. It can make for very awkward chemistry on a coaching staff and for a team in the locker room. There's no question about it. We'll take a break. Back with more after this.
Hi, I'm the host of a new sports show here in Charleston called The Brandon Lowe Show. I talk WVU, Marshall, high school sports, and even national stories. Things don't always go as planned. But Nick always knows how to tackle the problems.
Listen to The Brandon Lowe Show, weekdays at 5 on AM 950 and 95 thesportsfox.com.
One of the most complicated areas for any business is human resources, not to mention workers' compensation, payroll, and employee benefits. At ASI, we provide relief from the everyday burden of employment administration. ASI allows businesses to cost-effectively outsource the management of human resources, employee benefits, payroll, and workers' compensation. Free your business to concentrate on what's important, operation and revenue. We want to help your business. Log on to ASILLCWV.com and let our business help your business grow. ASI, business helping business.
It's back to school time, and there's 3 things I gotta get. A buffalo hide backpack, my vintage Gunsmoke lunchbox, I put apple juice in my thermos, and a new pickup from Dutch Miller Ram of South Charleston.
During the summer clearance event, take your choice of over $13,000 in discounts, 0% financing for 72 months, or drive for as low as $199 a month on 2016 Ram 1500 Bighorns.
During the summer clearance event at Dutch Miller Ram of South Charleston.
Welcome back. We are inside tonight and happy to be inside. It's kind of a bad weather night across the state of West Virginia. Dutch Miller RSN Sports pregame show, and we talked about the Mountaineers and TCU this weekend. Let's look at some of the high school games across the state this week and how they might impact some of the rankings and how the weather might impact some of the big games. There are some big games. The season is flying by. This is like week 9 officially, and there are some huge games this weekend, Dana.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like just yesterday we were over at Winfield trying to beat the heat. Weren't you sitting in a vehicle with air conditioning? And weren't you like up in Minnesota?
I was in Minnesota.
Degrees in the shade,
and we pulled that one off over there. But it seems like that was just yesterday we were over there. It was so hot, and in the first 2 or 3 weekends that we did shows, it was hot. It seemed like everywhere we went, we were battling the heat. But
which is okay with me.
But it's changed.
This was a quick change in temperature for sure.
It really,
yeah.
It just came in
really quick.
Crazy last night. So, we have, I don't know if our producer, Butch Mounts, if he can get those up on the screen. We have, well, those are the big games, but let's see if do you have the rankings there that we, and well, let's see there, and I think that is Class A, but that's a little tough from our vantage point, but at home you can see those, and St. Mary's is undefeated at 7-0, as the big game probably single way is going to be playing at South Harrison, who's also undefeated in 7-0, and that's huge. I think in single A, there's just a lot of hype for that. And then there's one real close by here, and of course we said that's getting affected by this
Buffalo and Fayetteville.
Yeah, Buffalo
hosting Fayetteville, loss.
And Fayetteville undefeated. And Fayetteville looking very, very strong in single A. Playing up at Buffalo, that's going to be a big challenge for them. They've already met one challenge. They went over to Fayetteville did. They went over to Nicholas County and played a double-A undefeated Nicholas County team and beat them 44-42 in the rain like this. So, they might be some mutters there. Their Pirates are they're going to loot and pillage over there. So,
well, that's a very interesting game, and one other thing that could play into the game. Fayetteville has had a great reputation this year for their road support. The fan support, they're concerned about their school there. They might lose their school.
Right.
They're fighting to save it. There's a lot of community pride. They've been traveling and following that team very well. Tonight, because of the weather, they might not be able to get to the visiting fans.
Right.
The visiting fans may not be able to get there as quickly as they would like.
It's going to be a test. So that's going to be on our RSN Sports Score Stream scoreboard. Certainly, that's going to be one if you're watching that tonight to watch that score come in, because certainly Fayetteville, there again, we see this sometimes when you have big games like this where both teams are either undefeated or just one loss. Whoever the winner is going to get a lot of bonus points on those SSAC ratings points, so they're going to catapult up in the number 1 or 2 spot, or at least in the top 3. And this time of year, like we said, we're talking playoff times now. We're down the last 2 or 3 weeks, so every game matters. And in high school sports, it's the same as it is in the NFL or in college sports, wins and losses mean big money to your athletic program. You get that home game or that extra home game because of that extra win you got in the regular season. It can mean thousands of dollars difference between traveling, the expenditure of traveling versus the revenue you get entertaining a home game. So those are big games, and they're money games. I mean, it's just you don't like to talk about that maybe with amateur high school sports, but they're money.
It is about money. It still is about money, yes.
It is, the athletic program. So that's one to watch. That definitely those two single A there. There's another in single A, too, that we don't want to overlook. Number 8, Van, 6-1, are going up north to play the undefeated Dragons of Cameron High School. And there's enough. You think about Fayetteville, and you think, St. Mary's, there's a pretty good program year in and year out. But we got like South Harrison this year, Cameron and Fayetteville in single A that are running undefeated seasons, and that's going to be interesting. How that plays out down the line.
Well, I hate to say it, but Van is another school that's in danger of closing. They've had a very emotional week in Boone County with rallies trying to save their school, and you wonder sometimes how that starts affecting some of your kids and your teams.
Right, you can go either way, and so it's going to be interesting to see. So there's definitely some big matchups in single A. So then we go to double A. I think Butch can pull those up on the screen there. In Double A, we were over at Bridgeport last week, and they were entertaining a one-loss North Marion team. Bridgeport's undefeated, and they ended up winning that contest 35-7. Enjoy that strawberry milkshake, by the way, there, sir.
There is a little animosity with the crew here because I have one, but I'm just enjoying myself. I'm the only one who has this. I am the only one who has this, so let's make that noted.
We know.
It's not animosity. I question his manhood a little bit. Real men drink chocolate milkshakes or maybe vanilla, but they don't drink strawberry.
Well, here's what I can say to that though. I am the only one.
Frank and I got to split a bottle.
I am the only one on this table, around this table, who has one. So whether it's chocolate, strawberry, whatever, it's good.
I just think those guys out at Chick-fil-A Southridge just really like you. They just cater to him.
Don't hate on me. Don't hate on me. Don't hate on me because I got a milkshake.
Well,
go ahead.
Go
ahead. Don't.
Before I was just sidetracked by the strawberry milkshake. We were over at Bridgeport last week. Bridgeport won that game 35-7 decisively against North Marion, catapulted them ahead with a loss of Fairmont, who lost to Jefferson last week on the road, which kind of was a little bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people, even though it was a double A playing a triple A, For Fairmont to lose that game, it catapulted Bridgeport back up in the number 1 spot where most people thought they would be most of the year anyway. So now you have Bridgeport number 1, Fairmont Senior number 2, and then you get into Mingo Central, who has just walloped everybody on their schedule down in the southern end of the state, is at number 3, and Point Pleasant, who's also just putting a whooping on everybody. So you have those top 4, I think, AA teams still. And big games, and we look at AA though. Outside Bridgeport plays on the road at AA Kaiser at 5-2. And Kaiser, the Tornadoes have been a team the Golden Tornadoes have been a team that to watch out for. They're just dangerous all the time, like we would consider Capital or South Charleston on this end of the state AAA. So Bridgeport's going to have another test tonight as they go on the road in AA. Also in AA, we'll show number 13 Hoover 5-2. At number 16, Rome County. That's a rivalry contest up the Oak River there. So.
It's a big game, and Hoover's kind of been the emotional favorite of the state this year for a lot of reasons. I mean, that school was basically wrecked because of the flooding and so forth in the summer. So everybody's had a little bit of a soft spot in their heart for Herbert Hoover.
If they can pull out the win, that secures them a playoff spot. I mean, they're guaranteed in the playoffs. So they're going to have their hands full, though, with that quarterback from Roane County. He's pretit's impressive.
Pretty good up there. So, it's a good bit. And then also in AA, and this one we sit down on this end, Winfield playing down at Chapmanville. Winfield 5-2, Chapmanville 5-3. We were at Winfield, like I said, first out of the year, but they've hung around in there. They're probably looking. Both those teams could look to be playoff bound.
Yeah, it's a measuring stick game, I think. I mean, I think the top 4 teams in AA have kind of separated themselves from the rest of the field. But if Chapmanville, who got smacked pretty good by Mingo Central last week, if they play Winfield close or win the game, it may show there's a bit of a gap between a Winfield and a Mingo Central also.
I agree with you. I think you're right. I think in AA, those top 4 teams have kind of separated themselves from the pack somewhat, if nothing else mentally. But is there another team down below? Is there a team that can challenge any one of those 4 teams? And Winfield would be one of those teams you might think could do it.
Sissonville might be the one. Yeah.
Sissonville looks likely finish 9-1 on the year, although they've got a tough road game at Logan tonight. But if they finish, one of those 2 teams could possibly, if they get the home field advantage, give one of those top 4 trouble. But right now, it looks like those top 4 right now looking at AA.
And the road probably still goes through Bridgeport.
You can't say anything. But those guys were good to us last night. Wasn't that a great place to be at?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Awesome atmosphere.
Nice community.
Yeah, it's a football town.
It did. It really is.
That's for sure. All right, and we'll go to AAA. We're talking. Lisa and I were talking AAA before we went on the air tonight, and just AAA is another one. I don't know if Butch can able to pull those rankings up there, but we know in AAA there's some big games around the state. It's not we're having a little technical difficulty on AAA, but we've got those in front of us here. The big game. Okay, there we go. You look at the rankings there, and in AAA, Martinsburg just crushing everybody, 8-0, and just putting her. Last week, I think went over to Hedgesville, neighbor over there, and won 63-0. I mean, they're just not beating people; they're beating the bad.
Right.
So you got to say, just like we said about Bridgeport, they're the team to beat. But are there teams that can do it? In AAA, you have to look right here at Capitol High. Capitol High going down to play at number 2, number 3. Yeah, it's number 2 versus
number 2, Spring Valley, right?
And Spring Valley.
Well, and I think that game's going to tell us a few things too, Dana. It's because it seems like Martinsburg and Capitol might be the cream of the crop in AAA, but is it a 2-team race or a 3-teamer? Spring Valley's got a chance to make a statement.
Spring Valley's is a surprise. I think at the first of the year when we seen Spring Valley come over and put a loss on South Charleston out of the gate, and we know South Charleston's down.
And Cabell Midland.
Yeah, everybody's saying, well, that was a bad. Everybody thought that was a bad loss for South Charleston or Cabell Midland, but in hindsight, that's looking like.
Spring Valley's pretty good. Yeah.
Spring Valley's pretty good.
I think of all the games tonight, that might be the one that's mostly affected with the weather because of the offenses, the way they run their offenses and the quarterbacks and the way they like to pass and
Yeah, that's the natural turf field down at Spring Valley, right?
Right, so definitely the weather could play a big factor in that one.
And I think that Capitol's loss, the team that beat Capitol, Johnson Central out of Kentucky, I think they are number 1 in Kentucky in Class 4A. So, I mean, that's not a bad loss.
Not a bad, there's such a thing as not a bad loss. Yeah, that would be that.
Yeah, that's a big game, like we said, because the winner of that, if it's close, then you could say either one of those 2 teams could still make a run at Martinsburg. But I think it's got in AAA, it's one or both of those 2 teams are going to make. If anybody has a shot at Martinsburg, it could be. It's going to rest in that game there. So they're getting another good score to be watching tonight. So and then finally we have just down the street here we have we got the AAA rankings up there at home. You can see those, but we have South Charleston entertaining Huntington over here tonight, and like we said, I think this is the game. If we had to look at will weather affect it, I think you have to look at that.
Yeah, definitely. South Charleston just has not played well at all, and but the weather gives them an opportunity to possibly some ball control. If they could get a ground game going and control the ball, I think that's an opportunity for them to kind of keep Huntington off the field. I think if they can do that, they've got a chance. But I think there's some real problems South Charleston has internally. A lot of conversation, a lot of mumbling about some of their top players, struggling in the game against St. Albans, having some thoughts about not going in.
Right? Coming behind 39-38 win.
Yes.
Against a St. Albans team that has been challenged the last couple of years. But 8 turnovers by the Black Eagles in that game.
Wow.
So
and I would say this. If I'm on that football team, or if I'm a parent of a player on that football team, or I am a coach on that football team, and there's kids who have an opportunity to go play college ball at any level, this is a perfect opportunity for a college coach to see how players handle adversity.
Right.
It's true.
And they may see something they don't
and they
like.
can see something that they don't like, and that can change the dynamics of how they view you. You may be in the plans coming in as a freshman. They see something in that adversity and decide that maybe you are not, or they can't count on you long term, and now they start looking another way. So I think for a team like South Charleston, who's kind of used to being in the hunt, all of a sudden now struggling with a team like St. Albans, all of this fighting in the locker room, fighting on the sidelines, unsure, talking about I don't want to go in. I think there's some problems internally there that have to be fixed right away.
Anywhere.
Yeah, you hate to see that anywhere. And players have to be able to handle that adversity. You have to be able to do it. If you don't, you're going to show a side that college coaches are not going to be interested
Or you're
in.
going to be running a lot of laps.
Absolutely.
Nothing makes it better than winning. So.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Let me ask you two guys one thing about Martinsburg. Every time you look at their score, it's very lopsided. 63-0, 47. You're always shocked if it's not lopsided. No close games. If they get in a state championship game and have a close game with a Capital or someone, how do they handle that?
I think it's a challenge. Football and sports as a whole, it follows kind of a regular pattern. You get it, you win a big game, you get super excited. What's the first thing you say? Okay, now they may have a lag in the next game. You go in, you play this, you blow a team out, blow another one out. All of a sudden, then becomes this complacency like, oh, we just got to show up. So there's just all of that. And so you don't know what happens when you get hit in the mouth until after you get hit in the mouth. So the team that comes out and plays them and super physical, super aggressive, not worrying about the score, that now changes the dynamics or could change the dynamics, and you would learn more about a team like Martinsburg. What if they get down 7-0? What if they get down 14-0? If they get behind, how do they handle that if they've never had to do that this year? That could be a challenge.
And they haven't been or much at all behind, I'm sure, after the year, like you said, just blowing everybody out. So it's going to be an interesting night. Like I said, as bad as things are out with the weather and the challenges and the traffic and so forth and the internet challenges today across the state, watching the ScoreStream scoreboard tonight on rsnsports.com, I think it's going to be entertaining, some of these scores coming in there. I think, speaking of entertaining, we had some fans that sent some, as Butch Mouch, our producer, if you'll be able to get those, we're going to close out this segment with some of the pictures. And next week we made decisions. We're getting so many of these pictures come into us that we're going to try to narrow that down to let the fans vote on the top 3, and then we'll bring them on the show each week. So it's going to give something for the fans to be able to interact with. So.
just want to hear.
Traffic is clear.
Jeep in South Charleston, because of all that crazy snow, we're a little overstocked with brand new Jeeps, so we're in a little bit of a pickle. So what we're going to do to help that is create what's called a nickel pickle sale, which means that you can get a brand new Jeep at Dutch Miller South Charleston with a down payment as low as a nickel. What do you think about that, Bill?
I look like a jalapeno. This is ridiculous.
You look great to me. What's wrong?
Why am I in this?
Well, it's a nickel pickle sale. We had to have a pickle.
Why couldn't I have dressed up like a nickel?
I didn't think of that.
For more than 200 years, guests have been coming to the Greenbrier to take the cool mountain breezes and experience authentic Southern hospitality. Today, that passion has been reinvented. The Greenbrier is the quintessential luxurious vacation. Book your stay today, and we'll create experiences that last a lifetime. Call 877-735-5068 or visit greenbrier.com.
Hi, I'm the host of a new sports show here in Charleston called The Brandon Lowe Show. I talk WVU, Marshall, high school sports, and even national stories. Things don't always go as planned. But Nick always knows how to tackle the problems.
Listen to The Brandon Lowe Show, weekdays at 5 on AM 950 and 95 thesportsfox.com.
Dutch Miller RSN Sports pregame show, and we are at Dutch Miller Kia in South Charleston. On location, Frank Gardenia, the football queen, Lisa Odie, the All-Pro Carl Lee, and Jake Rollo from Dutch Miller is with us here also at this time. And we've had bad weather across the state of West Virginia, starting to clear up, and a good football weekend is fortunately on tap, both high school and college. And Jake, you're a football guy too, right?
Yeah. Played at Sherman High School. You were talking some Boone County football.
Boone County football, yeah, the Sherman Tide.
Sherman Tide, yeah. And then went to Concord. Played at Concord for a couple years under Garen Justice down at Florida Atlantic now. And,
who was just here last weekend.
Yeah. Played for Garen up there. Loved it. Stayed injury prone a little bit, so didn't get to go get my chance at the next level.
Well, you know why you were injury prone is because you didn't get to go one-on-one enough with the All-Pro here, Carl Lee, who was a technician.
Yeah,
that's a kind way of saying. That's a kind way of saying what, Carl?
I'm going to say it's salt. I was going to take that as like salt. Is what I was going to say.
He was a cerebral technician.
Oh boy, he won't be able to walk through the door tonight.
Well, here's what I appreciate having you. Even though you're a receiver, I appreciate just adding athletic ability to the table. You know what I'm saying? It just makes the table more athletic, and it just looks better. You know what I'm saying? Between me and the Queen, I mean, we carry Frank as much as we can. Now with you, it makes it a little bit easier. So, you were a receiver, and how tall are you?
6'5".
6'5". I'm trying to think. During my time, I think one of the guys would have been Herman Moore. I think was like about 6'4", 6'5". Guys like that are a huge challenge to cover. Just because, and you said something about your vertical.
Yeah, I had a 40-inch vertical in college my sophomore year.
See, that's like Randy Moss freakish type thing, because you don't usually get that with a receiver.
Were you a quarterback at Sherman?
No. We had an all-state quarterback. I played receiver, free safety, defense.
Were you this tall in high school?
I was about 6'3" in high school, but I weighed about $190. I'm 230 now. So I didn't have that. What I like to call in college the imposing will on the smaller corners that we had. It was in high school AA football. It's speed. It's not as much technique as you see at the college and especially professional level. So I got away a lot of the time with just being bigger and faster than some of the competition we had. And in college it wasn't as much so. Like I said, had to do more footwork, a lot more hand drills with corners. You guys like to get in our face quite a bit.
And that is really some of the things that I think that we lag behind in West Virginia is the actual true techniques of whether it's a defensive back playing man-to-man and or a receiver being able to get off of it. Because you may end up going to college and never really faced anyone who's putting their hands on you, trying to grab you, hold you, and those kind of things. And so you don't have any
they're not
idea.
physical enough to really do it effectively.
Yes. Or if you're this size and you've got a corner that's maybe 5'7", 5'8", and 145, you're never going to see somebody like a 6'2" corner, 6'3" corner that now you see Sherman from Seattle. You see these kind of guys now that are 6'2", 6'3", that can run and do all that. So I really wish there was a way that we could get coaches to understand the techniques that are actually required. Winning is great, but at the end of the day, you still got to teach these kids opportunity to get, so when they get to the college level, they can manage it.
Yeah, that was something, that was big for me, even going into camps. Going into my senior year, going to Penn State, I went to a couple Nike camps, went down to Duke, WVU, Marshall, that I wasn't seeing even in high school was, with no pads, press coverage was not, the first couple camps, somebody got in my chest, and I didn't know to protect it. I didn't know to get their hands off.
Right,
I didn't know, how to break off routes, because my 10-yard in was 10-yard, plant and go, and it's not that.
And it's on timing because you used to drive routes. You used to either drive routes and just doing that.
You don't get that at the next level, and that's something that I've tried to talk with people locally where I'm from. I wish I would have had coming up. Maybe I could have went to a Marshall, to a WVU on a scholarship, and maybe gotten to that next level. But when you don't have the opportunity, it's
and I think we have. I think we have some really true raw talent here.
In the state.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I look at, I see the guys from the high school all the time. They come through the rec. I mean, these guys are bigger, stronger, faster, quicker, all of those things than I was at 155 coming out of high school. And it's like, it's hard for me to imagine having all that talent or raw talent and then not have some of the specifics that will give you the edge to play at that next level. Right. I think that becomes the biggest piece of it.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was just the level of football knowledge going in was serious. I played against guys from Northern Virginia, the DMV area.
Yeah.
That's a hotbed for kids.
Yeah.
And playing against those kids who knew how to run comebacks and didn't go deep or run a 10-yard curl. Those were my two routes in high school.
Well, I think some of it, too, is because you hadn't seen that or played against guys like that, you almost give them too much credit when you go to college and do see them. And you're kind of awed by them, or you think, well, these guys, I've never seen guys like this. And you don't realize that you can do things, too, that they haven't seen because you have physical attributes. Am I crazy?
No, you're exactly right. One of the things that was told to me at Marshall during the whole scouting process and teams coming in and, you running for the scouts and getting invited to the combines and all that, it was like, one of the coaches made the comment that you're going to be shocked of how talented some of these guys are, and immediately Coach Pruitt came back and said, yeah, but what he won't know is how good he can be when every guy on the team on the field is as good or better than he is, because he will play up to that level. And to me, I remember hearing that and thinking, I never really looked at it that way. Because what happens is when you get into a camp, whether it's college or pro, you know those guys' names. You know who the star is, right? And so all of a sudden you get there and you're like, oh gosh, I got to cover Sammy White, And I'm like thinking, if you go into it thinking that, then you're going to lose.
Right.
You have to go and cover Sammy White.
That's why camps are so valuable, because it gives you that experience.
Yes.
To be exposed to different players and different styles of play.
You can't be starstruck by those guys.
Right, and that's what happens. And you won't ever admit it. Guys won't ever admit it. Why am I going to be starstruck by this guy, right? But you do.
Right.
You get in there and, I'm like thinking like Tommy Kramer's the quarterback. I can remember him sitting at home watching him on TV. How am I now how am I in that setting with him?
Right.
You have to let that go and say, well, that's okay, because I got to do the job I've got to do.
Well, I think, too, when you hear Jake and talk about some of your measurables, there are kids like that don't get looked at. They don't get exposed.
Right.
They don't get seen. I mean, if you were in Florida, you'd probably be at a low D1 playing at a Florida Atlantic, a Florida International, someplace. There are D1 caliber athletes, I think, in this who don't know how to be a D1 caliber athlete because they're not looked at or not talked to, they're not given the exposure. Am I crazy?
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. I think I think like here, we have WVU and we have Marshall. And that becomes the goal. And that's the epitome of West Virginia college sports. But what happens, there are other teams on lower, just a notch.
A whole level of 1AA.
Yes, that you can play. And I think we get so tuned in and locked into, well, if I don't go to Marshall, if I don't go to WVU, if I don't get a scholarship there, I'm probably just not going to go anywhere. But I think you've got to be as aggressive in your own recruitment of where these other schools are in North Carolina, in South Carolina, in just all these surrounding areas. I think we've got to find these kind of schools that you can fit, because the intangibles that you have is a legitimate receiver size in this market today. It just is.
And that's just the nature of a lot of problems in West Virginia.
Yes.
If you look at the whole economy, everything, it's just the rural, how we're so rural.
We undersell ourselves.
We undersell ourselves, absolutely.
I mean, there's a whole level of 1AA. There are athletes playing in leagues like at Appy State, and there used to be 1AA, but there are a lot of athletes at 1AA leagues that are playing that don't have any more measurables than you had coming out of high school.
And if you don't mind, that was a big thing with me, being a 17, 18-year-old kid from West Virginia. I always wanted to play for Marshall. What was never a huge WVU guy. Loved to see him win, loved the local teams, but always wanted to play at Marshall. And when I was 17 and 18, getting recruited by the schools that were out of state, I thought, I'm better than that. I can play D1, and then Concord and Fairmont State say, come up and visit West Liberty, and you think, I'm not going to do that. And then these big schools say, well, who are you playing?
Yeah.
You're playing single A, double A football.
Right.
You're not. And again, that goes into a mindset of recruiting and being a kid.
And understanding how to deal with those conversations.
Right.
Jake Roller with us from Dutch Miller. Before we let you go, before we take a break, also tell us about the commitment of this dealership of Dutch Miller to sports, to local sports, and the vehicles that you guys have that make great tailgating opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Our owner, Chris Miller, loves the community. You always see him, Huntington High School, Cabell Midland, here in South Charleston. Huge booster for the football local programs, obviously for this program as well. It's something that he loves and he believes in. And, when you love and believe in things, word gets around. We're doing community events all the time. Last year we had Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat here, on a Saturday, one of our busiest days. But
Carl doesn't know who those guys are.
I've heard their names.
We do it for the community, and it's something people love. Last thing I really want to get to is some of the vehicles we have. It's SUV season. It's four-wheel drive season. Winters we get here are crazy. Last year, 3 foot of snow. Nobody was getting anywhere. One of our big sellers right now is the Jeep Wrangler. I mean, it's a staple in our dealerships. It's something that everybody wants. They're rugged, but they're durable. Good fuel economy. We've got excess of 15 out here. Plenty of other SUVs. Great deals.
We're having a great time here tonight. Out of the weather, inside Dutch Miller. It's great to have a fourth really good athlete here. We'll be back and take a break after this.
That's okay. We were running over a little bit anyway. So.
Oh, we're done?
We're done.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's impossible.
Oh, you were great.
Yeah, we have to go on the road with us.
It's easy to talk about.